Yes, welcome to this session. In this session, we are going to talk about how you can use our ArcGIS API for JavaScript to build web applications for smart cities. So here's a bit like the content of this presentation. I'm going to talk first about the smart cities in general. Then afterwards, we going to talk a bit like what are the highlights of the JavaScript API, and then Michael will take over and basically gives an overview of a product initiative we are working on. It's called ArcGIS Urban, and it's also a very nice example. And there he highlights a few of the things, like for example filtering or this new edge rendering, or then something very cool, the polygonal drawing tool, kind of. And then at the very end, the conclusion outlook by Michael. Maybe very quickly who we are. I'm Pascal. I'm the director of the Esri R&D Center in Zurich. And there, we are developing the 3D part of the JavaScript API and City Engine, and as mentioned, this new product initiative. And Michael, he's the lead developer of this new product initiative. So let's start. So first, smart 3D cities. Very question, what is a smart city? And I just wanted to mention that, like, this is that's a terminology which is kind of like a bit unclear. Also, when you look to Wikipedia, but in general, it's about cities. That cities are now more than just a cadastre and land use. They really have this data layer on top. And that might be real-time data, or that might be aggregated data, but it's really about like that cities want to become smarter in like how they handle this data and understand the city. And as you might know, Esri has about 30,000 cities and local government organizations as customers, and of course, all of them are smart. And therefore, we already have quite a lot of applications of applications, might be in desktop or in web, which have been created by this. So I want to give you a few examples. So in regards to monitoring, there you might know the operation dashboards is a famous one where you can track calls or traffic. Then there are custom applications, like, for example, the parking availability, so these kind of things. It's interesting. Most of these applications are actually more like 2D, because it's about more this real-time aspect of it. Then the next here are some examples for like basically understanding your city. So it's all about like you have all this data and you need to visualize it and compare it. So for example, Urban Observatory, that's an initiative by Jack and Sol Sermon, something, the TED founder, where they compared, for example, how your city is doing in comparison to another city, and then or walkability, all these kind of typical GIS things you're doing. Next thing, this is where we in Zurich are kind of our expertise is the planning aspect of it. So there again, we have many customers which are doing already very amazing stuff with ArcGIS software, and might be from urban design to development review, comp planning, long range planning, all these kind of things. Somehow they already are in place. And also simulation is of course a big thing. So this is something, especially when with third parties, which here you see a company which just doing noise simulation, where you can basically look at what if scenarios and simulate them. And then last but not least, most important is actually that cities, they really are interested in citizen engagement and outreach and communication. So it means they need to tell stories around like what's happening in their city. And therefore, we have a big initiative with ArcGIS Hub, which is actually really a big story about citizen engagement. and really exciting also for us to be part of that platform. And then, yeah, we have, of course, story maps, you know, story maps. And also what's interesting there is that cities start actually really to use 3D, because 3D is now kind of on the stage where sometimes it's even simpler to understand than 2D, because you don't need to make the mapping, you actually see it directly in there. So yeah, so these are kind of like, yeah, already very smart things. And when you look at this, kind of like the takeaway messages of this is that yeah, cities that they are really interested in improving how they maintain their city on the one hand, and then on the other hand, how to better develop the city. So that's kind of called smart planning, etc. So it means what I want to say is it's not like, for example, I don't know, Cisco, who says that smart cities is only about sensors or Internet of Things. It's really about, I think it's the whole product story, like from sensors to GIS to citizen engagement. So it's really kind of like a bigger thing. And also for us, what's interesting is that these smart cities, that they are more and more using 3D technology, especially for the planning and the engagement part, as you just saw before. So yeah, so, and for doing that, obviously these guys, they need web API for creating 3D graphics. And as you might know, yeah, I know such a API. So it means, yeah, that's our, yeah, the JavaScript for X is now really kind of, I think, ready to do these things. And for that, I wanted to give you some of the features. You probably have seen it in the plenary, so I'm not talking about like the what's new stuff. I'm just talking about features which are like relevant for yeah, smart cities. So first, smart mapping, lots of smart. But yeah, smart mapping is that's an older concept. You know it from 2D, and so what you see here is now. Let me go here. So I'm now here in the scene viewer. I go to I search for a layer. I add this layer. So this is now this textured layer of Helsinki. And now the idea is when I'm in here, this layer has actually, yeah, each feature has some data on top, also the attributes here of the feature. And what we can do is with smart mapping is we can go and select, for example, here, where is it? Ground level is an interesting one. So we can select which attribute we want to visualize, and then when you turn it on, you can see here a colorful visualization. So in this case, I selected ground level, and ground level means so if I change now a bit the map here, for example, I take a red one, I turn it around. So now you see here, basically these red buildings are the ones which are low ground level, means, for example, yeah, for flood, these guys might have a problem. So yeah, so, and there's, by the way, also the edges, I think, are now in. So here, in case you haven't seen that, I think this is like in since yesterday or something. So so yeah, but what you see here is like that's what this cities is about. It's about like how you visualize information, what are the performance metric, and how to visualize them in a way that people actually really, yeah, understand it and get it in a very simple way. So go back. So smart mapping is really a very powerful concept, and from a developer's point of view, you might know about the visual variable concept. So it's actually really very simple to use also. Next slide. So that was something we actually introduced last year with JavaScript 4.3, I think. And you here. So that's called see-through. That was a demo application we did. And what's very, very important is basically that you are able to query and filter stuff. So it means this is also something we are providing, our JavaScript API, that you can very easily, not only visualize here, as you see and as you saw before, a city, but you can go in and do stuff with it. So it means it's like GIS. There's no difference from 2D to 3D here. You can go query stuff, you can filter, you can really go in, and all this in real time in the browser. And I think that's the exciting part. So here, for example, we see the city of Zurich, and these are the spaces. So it means basically every apartment, we know the land use of the apartments, subfloors basically, and you see different land uses. And now the user clicks on here residential, and now he basically only visualizes the residential ones, and the other ones are transparent. So it means the user can actually really go in and explore the data. And this is for a city. That's actually a pretty interesting, having these tools is, especially in this case where you have these 3D spaces, these are really big problems of cities. They don't have these tools available. So for example here, what you see is what the planner is doing. He wants to figure out what is going on in this area here, and so that's a public space. So to figure out if this public space is actually of good quality, of livable quality, you have to figure out, is there life on that public space? To figure that out, there are a few rules. So for example, one thing you can look into is the ground floor. What is going on in the ground floor there? So of course, if this ground floor would be full of offices, nothing would happen there. So that's then when the city comes in and basically tells people to like, hey, we want to have retail stores here. So, and then people go there and they start, the public space starts to live. However, the problem is these cities, they barely can figure out what's going on their ground floor actually in reality. So it means, and what you see here now is like, I selected a few buildings, then I filter the ground floor, then I go actually in, I just filter for retail, so I see now the retail shops, and then I also go, last but not least, I filter for small retail shops. So it means these are the mom and pop stores basically, and these kind of little stores, that's what actually makes things live in the city, because then people talk with each other and walk around. As you can see now here, there are quite a few in here. So again, this is a city wants to understand what's going on in their city and needs tools such as this to actually really make that available for everybody. And obviously, in the browser is a very simple thing. You just need to send a link to somebody, and plus you have user experiences which are much simpler to use than the standard GIS thing. So Michael will actually give an example then how the whole filtering and definition queries are done. Then what's also very important is our overlays. So I think when you have a city visualization, then you want to be able to show data on top of it. So here, for example, is so this is an application which Raluca wrote. So he was also the one with the hiking application. So what you see here is basically the buildings of in Manhattan according to the year. So, and you see these are they are colored in different colors, and so it means smart mapping is used here. And then also you can go and actually filter them here, so you only see the ones which are skyscraper or higher. So according height, you can filter them out here. And as you see, this is all live, all very fast, and really easy to use. And now what we also have is this kind of you can have these overlays and label them. So it means you can have, for example, a point of interest layer, and I can really put it on top of my buildings. So for example, here you see this this label here, this info label, and then you see the call out here, and and this way you can actually really. What's interesting here, you see now when it loads in, they get actually moved up the labels. So for example, you can have a Twitter layer, and you can really augment your 3D city model with this. So it means the combination of basically 2D data and 3D model is something which is possible now. Next. Here. Then a very, very important thing, I said I'm not going to show it because you saw that probably in the plenary, is that we have now with JavaScript 4.7 mobile support. And this is especially important for things like story maps, etc., which people open on their phone. People use the phone to enter the internet more than the desktop. So yeah, and I think so means this is a very, very big milestone for us, yeah, we are really looking forward also to the feedback on that. And then another one is the edge rendering, also something you saw in the plenary. And so one of the reasons we're doing that was because of urban planners who actually really requested that. So when you go in here, for example, in this guy here, that's so this is edge rendering here with standard edges, and here you have edge rendering with kind of sketchy edges. So this is not just, we didn't just do sketchy because we can, but we did that because that was actually really a request which we got very often from urban planners. They want to visualize how the city could look like in 3D. However, they were very much afraid that people think this is going to be the real thing. So it means a sketch style is actually really something which people relax and say like, okay, it's a sketch, it's all good, it's still good. So this is actually seems like just a nice feature, but yeah, I sent that to like 3 urban planning departments, and they're freaking out. They love it so much, and so yeah. Here I can actually show you also something which is pretty cool. It's actually our test application, how we are working with the edges, with the edge rendering, and so the edge rendering will also be available in 4.7. So here you see. So here you see a bit like what can be done here, and then for example here you see becomes much more the contrast and everything. It looks just cleaner and better. Or then you can create this kind of monochrome picture. So when you combine the edges with grayscale imagery, it becomes like one of these kind of old maps. Then here the sketch one, which is super cool. Let's go near here. So it's very kind of subtle, but people can see it. You can feel it that it is kind of like sketchy. Also depends a bit on the. So this is really our test application here. And technical, it's actually something we played around with the edges. So let's go here, for example. So what you see here, you can, for example, extend the edges a bit, and then it looks like kind of like in this plans. So here is this is the hidden line version of it. Again, especially architects, they are really into this kind of visualization. They're like they need to tell a story. It's not just about, they don't just need to, it's not just smart mapping or realistic rendering. There's a whole world out there of different things, and you want to visualize things and tell stories. And this is for us as makers of the 3D API. This is super important that we actually give you the tools for doing that in a very simple way. And then there are also practical things, like for example, X-ray is very important when you, for example, want to see through stuff. So let's say you have here now some metro lines or some tubes or underground structures, and then wireframe is actually a pretty good visualization for doing that. Wireframe, yeah. So this is we are going to write a blog post about this, and this is basically for us to actually figure out what will be in the scene viewer, in the next version of the scene viewer, then the UC version, what will be basically the smart mapping styles for these edges. Currently it's just an on-off, where you can turn it on and off, but then afterwards we are working actually on that. But again, back to the API. So yeah, for us, this was, where am I? Here. Sorry. So for us, it was also a really important step that we have this. So to conclude, I think something which you all knew is that our API integrates very well with the rest of the platform. So means especially Pro, obviously. So you can do the very advanced things, of course, you do in Pro, and then more like specific workflows. Therefore you go and implement web applications and do them there. But all the scene layers and feature layers are across platform. You know that. I think what's for us, what's really like the next version, the 4.7 release, is I think really a big version for us, because I think we actually we did 3 things which are super important, and that basically make it now really kind of like, I would say, best of the class kind of API for geographic contents, because it's really like now it's fast, it supports mobile, and the stuff looks really good. So I think that's really something I think which we are very proud of, and also super happy. And therefore we hope now that many people will write applications for planning and citizen engagement, for example, with our API. And one such guy which is writing such an application is Michael, and so yeah, and he will now show like what we are building in Zurich, and yeah. So I will start with giving a demo of a urban planning application.
Now it works. All right, so I'm going to show an example of an urban planning application that we've developed. It's a zoning designer. And then I'm going to go into some coding examples of how you can also implement such features with the API. So we've developed a zoning designer as a web application using the API, where you get an overview of an entire city with the zoning boundaries. And this is a huge amount of data. These are about 8,000 zoning boundaries, about 200,000 parcels, 200,000 buildings, and you can zoom in and out. Has great detail of all the buildings in there. And then what you see is there's several zoning plans shown on the map, which are proposals for the future. They have a time, and they have this red line, that's a study area boundary. And what you can do in this overview is you can see some indicators of what the impact of these plans will be. And if you click to see more details of the indicators, then it flips to 3D and you see the indicators per plan. And then what you have here on the left is something you typically see in web applications. You have a list of the overview, and then you can search or filter this list. So if I'm going to look for the downtown, then I can type that, and the list here updates, as well as here on the side. But the internet seems to be too slow to update correctly. Technical glitch. Let me reload. So what we want to have is that as you search the list, I see what, no? I think internet connection doesn't work. Then I'll switch to video if it doesn't work. It doesn't load. I should have put the video ready. What was the name of the video?
So yeah, it's very alpha still, everything. And we started like 2 months ago with the development of this, and yeah, it's all about like how do you manage zoning codes in a city and do urban plans, and yeah.
Slow network, yeah. So it's not working. I'll just show it with the slides. I've prepared it with the slides. So one of the things I wanted to show is that on this map, on this overview, you can filter the content. And that's really simple. On the layer, you can set a definition expression, just like this, for example, for the year of the zoning plan, and then it will filter the content in the view. So here, if I slide the year slider, then my list will update, but also the view will update accordingly, showing only the filtered items. And this is really simple to implement yourself on a scene layer or on a feature layer. You can set the definition expression, which is the SQL query. And I'm using a template literal here, which you can use if you're using TypeScript or ES6. You can use these literals to have a really clean and elegant way to construct your expression. Also, if you want to search by name through the list, you can set up a query like this, where we use upper for uppercase, so it's case insensitive. We use these percentage symbols and the like operator so that it will look for any plan where the name includes the query that we typed in. So here in the overview, if we start typing in the search field over here, then it will filter the list here, but it will also filter the view. So if I type OE, then I only have this plan left visible. You can use the same to filter out scenarios. So you can add a scenario attribute to your features and then filter them out in the view. And one thing to pay attention with is that if you're querying a string, you need to add these quotes around it in the query. That's where this template literal is really clean, because you can type the quotes right in there and then around your field. The same if you want to filter for a specific feature in your scene view, you can construct the same filter. And if you want to filter multiple features, you can use the in operator and then filter a list of IDs. This list, it has to be a string, which is a comma-separated list. And again, you need the quotes in there. You can write that like this. So you have your array in JavaScript of IDs that you want to show. Then you have to map them to add the quotes around the ID. And then you can join them by a comma. Then you have your comma-separated list. And like this, you can only show a selection of features in your view. Then another really cool new feature that we have in the 4.7 release is the edge rendering. And Pascal already showed some cool videos, but especially for urban planning, this kind of style makes it much easier to see the buildings. It also looks better, but it's also easier to understand what the shape of the buildings is. And then another thing is when you're doing urban design, I would say 80 or 90% of the time, you're working in 2D or in top view. And in that case, this edge style makes it extra easy to understand the buildings from top, what their shape is. Otherwise, they would look a bit flat. So it looks better, it improves the visibility, especially improves this 2D view. And then something Pascal also mentioned, if a building is just a design, you can use the sketch style to indicate to the users that it's not real, it's only a proposal. And if you want to implement this yourself, it's super easy. On your layer renderer, you just have to add this edge field, edges. And that's all. Then they will, the API will calculate, will detect the edges and show them. In the future, later this year, we'll also have styles here. For example, sketch or the technical that you've seen before, and that's just here the type field. You can control that. And then the last thing that I'm really excited to show you is a bit of a hidden feature. It's not documented. That's how you can input a polygon to use in your planning application. So I've shown you the overview before, and you have different plans. Now, what if you want to create a new one and select the study area of your plan? So then we have this polygon input where you draw the polygon, and then you can afterwards also drag the edges. You type the name, OK, and then it creates we create a new feature with this shape. And this also works in 3D, which is not that easy, and it's pretty cool because you have to keep the terrain and the elevation into account. So with the API, you can draw this polygon, and you see here there's an elevation change, and it shows that neatly with this edge here and the two polygons, the flat one and the one that is draped on the terrain. So if you want to implement this, you can do that with using the new area measurement tool, which is coming out in 4.7. And again, it's undocumented. So maybe you want to take a screenshot afterwards of how to do it. So first of all, you need to import the tool. With this link, you can import the area measurement tool. And then it's really simple to use it. You initialize it with your scene view, and you do tool.start. And then your view will go into a mode where you have this polygon input. And you can draw the polygon, you can drag around the edges. The thing is, you want to use that polygon in your application, right? You want to do something with it. So what we do is we add a watcher to the tool that watches the area. So when the area changes, that means someone edited the polygon. And then we want to do something with it. We want to extract the geometry. That's again pretty simple. So you can extract the path in the tool.model.path. and I'm extracting the latitude and longitude. Then you can also extract the spatial reference. And this geometry is then what I use to create a new feature in the feature layer. So I take this, apply edits, and I add this geometry. Then when you're finished inputting, of course, you have to remember to remove the watcher and to stop the tool. But it's that simple. You just tool.stop, and you go back to the regular viewing mode. So to conclude, the JavaScript API has a number of really awesome tools to create a powerful smart city application, such as the filtering, these nice renderers, the labels, the styles, and the measurement tools that are now available. So up till now, there was the linear measurement tool, and in the new release, there's the area, the polygon measurement tool. Then coming up, the next priorities for the API. So one is what Pascal showed, the different styles, such as sketch or technical. Then we want to improve the navigation, and we want to improve the storytelling experience. So this is like a better slides experience, a better pop-ups. Then also better support for this very high feature count, so that they're not all loaded at once, but only loaded where you're looking at. For scene layers, that's already the case, but for feature layers, this can be improved. We want to support underground and pipes. Then another very cool feature coming up is scene layer masking, which means, for example, we have this planned study area, then you can tell the API for that area, hide the buildings, because I'm going to put in new ones. So you can just then hide this polygon from the scene layer. And then also we want to add better BIM support in the viewer. Yeah, that's it. Thank you very much for listening.
Questions? Maybe who is using the JavaScript API? Okay. Who is using 4X? Oh, okay, cool. And who is from local government? Okay. And okay. So how do you like our new platform?
I work in a city planning office in Washington, D.C., and the planners will love the edge rendering.
Thank you. Okay.
I apologize, I walked in late. What is the timing for 4.7?
April. Questions? No questions. Okay. So yeah. So we really encourage you to try it out. And yeah, if you have any questions, then yeah, we have on the island there. There's also are people from us there where you can go into the dirty details of the whole thing. Yeah, we really encourage you to use it. It's really cool thing to work with. So yeah, thanks again, and see ya.